Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content, and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.
Senator Tom Cotton says hundreds of military whistleblowers have reported being forced to receive, quote, anti-American indoctrination training, including critical race theory. During a hearing Thursday, Cotton probed Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin over the reports. NTD's Grace Coulter has the story.
Following claims that Marxist and woke ideology is infiltrating the military, Senator Tom Cotton and Representative Dan Crenshaw set up a reporting site for military whistleblowers.
Mr. Secretary.
On Thursday, Cotton told Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin they've received several hundred whistleblower complaints about what he called Pentagon extremist and diversity training.
One Marine told us that a military history training session was replaced with mandatory training on police brutality, white privilege, and systemic racism. He reported that several officers are now leaving his unit, citing that training. Soldiers have come forward to tell us they are being forced to watch videos about systemic racism and documentaries that rewrite America's history as a fundamentally racist and evil nation.
One service member reportedly said their unit was required to read White Fragility, a book that claims, quote, white people raised in Western society are conditioned into a white supremacist worldview because it is the bedrock of our society and its institutions. Cotton read out numerous other examples and said that a number of service members are reportedly leaving because of the training.
Mr. Secretary, we're hearing reports of plummeting morale, growing mistrust between the races and sexes where none existed just 6 months ago, and unexpected retirements and separations based on these trainings alone. And again, these are not my words, these are the words of your own troops.
In April, Austin ordered new steps to address extremism in the ranks of the military. The move raised concerns about how extremism would be defined and determined. Cotton probed Austin with a series of yes or no questions about his own beliefs surrounding racism and the military. Austin said he doesn't believe the military is fundamentally racist or that people should be treated differently based on their sex or skin color, adding that that's why the military has a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion.
I would also say that diversity, equity, and inclusion is important to this military now, and it will be important in the future. And so we're going to make sure that our military looks like America and that our leadership looks like what's in the ranks of the military.
Cotton noted that for decades, the military has been one of the institutions in society where you're most likely to get ahead based on merit, regardless of skin color, where you're from, or who your parents are. Austin was in agreement, saying he's an example of that.
As the pushback against critical race theory continues, a mom who fled communist China has a warning for her local school board and America. She lays out the stark parallels between the ideology and cultural Marxism during China's Cultural Revolution. NTD's Grace Coulter has the story.
Up in South China, all this seems very familiar.
This Virginia mom fled communist China under Mao Zedong. And now she's warning Americans of the parallels between the Cultural Revolution and what's taking place in the United States. Earlier this week, she condemned her local school board for embracing critical race theory.
I've been very alarmed about what's going on in our school. You are now training our children to be social justice warriors and to loathe our country and our history. Growing up in South China, all this seems very familiar. The communist regime used the same critical theory to divide people. The only difference is they use class instead of race. This is indeed the American version of the Chinese Cultural Revolution. The critical race theory has its roots in cultural Marxism. It should have no place in our schools.
Xi Van Fleet fled communist China when she was 26 years old. She said during the Cultural Revolution, she witnessed students and teachers turn against each other. School names were changed to be politically correct, and students were taught to denounce their heritage. She said Mao's Red Guards destroyed everything that was not communist, like old statues and books. Van Fleet said during the revolution, students were encouraged to report on each other and likened it to the school's Student Equity Ambassador program and bias reporting system. Van Fleet's one-minute speech not only won her a round of applause, it also went viral. and she joined Fox News host Sean Hannity on Thursday, further elaborating on the parallels. She said in China, they had their own version of wokeness.
Your level of wokeness determine your chance to get promotion or to get benefit. And who decides your level of wokeness? It is the party leaders.
And that in America, people get called a racist for not going along with the ideology of wokeness. In China, you were called a counter-revolutionary.
So it is a hat that fits all. And once the hat is on your head, your life is ruined. And the methodology is also very similar. It's cancel culture. We basically cancel the whole Chinese civilization pre-communism.
She has a message for Americans. Freedom is fragile, and we can lose it any time if we don't defend it. She said she expects more Chinese Americans will speak out to warn America about the direction the country's heading. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
Congressman Chip Roy from Texas introduced a bill that would ban members of the Chinese Communist Party from owning land in the U.S. Roy says this bill would ensure Texas land will never come under the control of the CCP. In a statement, the congressman warns that the CCP's quest for global domination and their direct investment in the U.S. economy pose a major threat to Americans' way of life. Data shows that 30 million acres of U.S. farmland is owned and controlled by foreign investors. In Texas, a Chinese-based energy company bought more than 130,000 acres of land. Now that Chinese-owned company is working to build a wind farm to access the U.S. power grid. That's why Representative Roy is working to pass this bill to prohibit the CCP from purchasing public or private real estate in America. A group in San Francisco is demanding names of priests that have credible accusations of child sex abuse. San Francisco's Archbishop has yet to release those names. NTD's Jason Blair has the story.
On Thursday, a press conference was held to call for San Francisco Archbishop Cordileone to release the list of clergy that have been credibly accused of child sex abuse. Attendees include abuse survivors, advocates, attorneys, and a whistleblower priest.
The people that need the most protection on this planet are children. They're innocent. That's why I'm here.
To call upon him to release the names so that the survivors of abuse, whose names he knows, can know that they're not alone and the only ones.
Cordileone is one of the 16 Catholic dioceses in the U.S. that has not published this information. For the past few years, abuse survivors and a group of attorneys have pressured Cordileone and other San Francisco Bay Area bishops to publicize the names. Jeff Anderson and Associates released a report in 2018 using publicly available information. Over 200 accused clergy in the San Francisco Bay Area were listed in the report. In response to the report in 2018, a spokesman for the Archdiocese of San Francisco expressed doubt. He said, "We can't tell how it was put together or from what sources or the criteria that were used." The Archdiocese of San Francisco was not immediately available for response to Thursday's press conference. Jason Blair, NTD News, San Francisco.
A scaled-down replica of the Statue of Liberty is on its way to the U.S. from France. Riding on the back of a flatbed truck, it will retrace the larger monument's journey made over a century ago. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the story.
The replica, which stands just over 9 feet tall, is being loaned to the United States for 10 years to cement the nation's friendship with France.
We wanted to hold this within tight timings. Today is the day after June 6th, the day after D-Day. We are also targeting July 4th, which is Independence Day, and on July 14th, the statue will be presented. So yes, French-American friendship should be marked under the symbol of liberty.
On Monday, workers used a crane to gently lift the statue off its pedestal in Paris. They then laid it on the back of a truck, covered with plastic film for protection and padded with foam blocks.
I think the Statue of Liberty is precious to all Americans, and to me particularly as the child of immigrants and a child of New York, having grown up seeing her face as part of the welcome to all that come to the United States and the hope, the chance, the opportunity for a new life.
France gave the larger version of the Statue of Liberty to the U.S. as a gift. It was completed and assembled in 1886. Frederick August Bartholdi designed the smaller replica in 1878.
First, I think that Bartholdi would have been extremely surprised by the popularity of his piece. 4 million visitors yearly in New York. It's an incredible success. It's probably one of the key monuments that we have in our minds, and I think he would have been happy.
Bartholdi also created New York's larger version, with help from engineer Gustave Eiffel, the man behind Paris's Eiffel Tower. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
New York City's iconic Independence Day fireworks are coming back in full force. It'll highlight the hero within, showcasing American bravery and optimism. At around 9:45 p.m., the annual 45th fireworks are set to ignite. There will be 5 barges on the East River and Midtown Manhattan, and the show will launch more than 65,000 shells and effects. Mayor de Blasio says this will be the biggest show yet. There will be a section for vaccinated people and another section for unvaccinated people. It'll be broadcast on NBC on July 4th at 8 p.m. Eastern for those who can't come to New York. And it'll feature artists like Coldplay, Tori Kelly, and Reba McEntire.
Navigating a world of economic madness, you need to have the right guide. What do today's decisions mean for your tomorrow? We ask why. What's the alternative? Uncover the deeper reasons and the hidden influences, and highlight the real opportunities for profit. At NTD Business, we connect the dots for you. Good evening. Thanks for joining us.